to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And yeah, 6 straight games in the Philadelphia Union have not won a home game since March 30th against Minnesota United. And look, fans were out and about, trying to get rid of the curse. And more people are talking about how Union Yards is a curse. And the Union still can't get a win. Back-to-back home draws now. And it's disappointing times for the Union. One away from tying the most games in a row at home without a win. They did that in 2014 where they went 7 in. Don't forget, we have Inter Miami coming up in 2 weeks. And yes, I know Inter Miami will be without Lionel Messi, but Suarez should still be there. Busquets, Jordi Alba, who scored last night with Inter Miami. So yeah, they still got players. Whether or not Messi's there, they are going to be a tough team. But we're not going to talk about that game, obviously, because we're going to talk about last night's CF Montreal game and what I want to call it a snooze fest, but as Jim Curtin stated in his press conference, he said, never a dull moment. And I think that's pretty accurate, just how it's going at Subaru Park so far this season. And joining me on tonight's show, I told you guys he was supposed to be at episode 300, but away with the family. No big deal. Because he said, you know what? I'll do you one better. I'll come on for 301. And so that is Mr. Jose Nunez. Jose, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Todd. Thank you for having me. And apologies for not being on 300, though I would go ahead and say confidently that you had far better guests than me, far more experienced in a lot of ways in terms of being on your show. So congratulations to you, man. 300 is no joke. That's a lot of being consistent, a little stubborn probably too, but obviously a huge feat to sort of keep up with it, because obviously there's been a lot of really thin years for this Philadelphia Union team that you've had to put up with, a lot of really, really bad teams and bad experiences that this team went through. And you were sort of there, right, in terms of reporting on it, talking about it, digesting it, and sharing it with people. So kudos to you for doing it for as long as you have. But hey, I'm here to break 301. So let's get to it and talk about this. I don't know. Again, you mentioned snooze fest, but there was a lot that happened and it wasn't good. Most of it.
No. I mean, I guess Wednesday's game against Toronto would have been more of a snooze fest, 0-0. The Union's 3 games in a row with a clean sheet comes to an end. But, they were in back-to-back games without a goal, and they get 2 against Montreal. Mikel Uhre scores for the first time since May 11th, I believe it was, when he did that against Orlando City. Daniel Gazdag scored his 50th MLS goal, tying him with Sebastian Letou for most goals in Union history in MLS play. Yes, we know Daniel Gazdag is the all-time leading goal scorer in all competitions for the Union, but in terms of just MLS goals, Daniel Gazdag has now tied Sebastian Letou, and of course it comes on a penalty kick last night. But
he did have a shot outside the box that looked mighty fine, but not enough to. Can you imagine? I mean, had he broken it not from the penalty spot, that would have been almost ironic, right? In a way, like it had to be from the penalty spot.
Yeah, but I don't know about you, but for me, I'm a little bit surprised that we've seen so many open play goals from Daniel Gazdag this season. I'm trying to pull up that number as we speak, but he couldn't have scored more than 3 penalties so far this season. I feel like most of his goals have been coming from open play, but we can get into it since we're talking about Daniel Gazdag. The one thing that was really, really apparent last night, and especially against Toronto, is this team lacks a creative number 10, honestly. Daniel Gazdag is not that, and that's not a knock on him. He's just more of a second striker, a false 9. He's not that creative 10 where you look at Luciano Acosta, you look at Emmanuel Reynoso, where I would say they're more your traditional number 10s, where they're creating, where they're going to split lines and everything. And I get why some fans say, well, let's try Jack McGlynn as a 10 because of his line-breaking passes. I don't think the 10's probably suited for Jack McGlynn. But I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe that's an interesting shout, because the Union, what are they going to do here now with Daniel Gazdag off with Hungary at the Euros? Do you put Quinn Sullivan at the 10, David Vasquez? I know some fans are going to say Kevin Sullivan. No way in hell Kevin Sullivan's starting at 14 years old. But yeah, I mean,
started for Union 2 today.
He did. And he was involved with the first goal too. The basic pass that led to CJ Olney getting the assist. And I don't know what this team does at 10 with Daniel Gazdag gone. I mean, Jim Curtin's mentioned that there's going to have to be formation change. And it's so funny. Like you and I talked about this in the press box, and maybe a little bit jokingly, but also being serious. Like, with so many players gone for international competitions, like this would have been a fantastic time for Joaquin Torres.
Oh my gosh, Joaquin Torres. I mean, even someone like Andres Perea, right? Someone who maybe is a little bit more nimble on the ball, can sort of split lines, and you sort of alluded to it, right? In terms of Jack McGlynn, and I think Nate was sort of joking in his appearance in the podcast, the Union podcast, but certainly not shy about calling out, Jack, that he's fortunate that he's got his left foot, because otherwise he's got nothing. Which, with that left foot, he's breaking lines. I saw your clip on the 12th minute. I went ahead and got it as well, where he broke that line and got Ua in. Someone needs to shout to Ua, you got time, because he had maybe 10 yards of space to finally dribble into the box a little bit further and try to find somebody else. But you're right. I think the Union need to figure out. I asked Jim this question, I think a couple of times now, certainly before the Portland game, maybe the match before Portland, leading into it. And then, because then obviously the team had mass exodus in terms of bodies for Portland. So leading into Portland, I asked about it. And then leading into this game, leading into this game, I asked Jim about it too. There's obviously a huge issue with depth, at least in my opinion. I'm not going to put words into your mouth, but once you get past number 11 or 12, like the team just suddenly drops, maybe 12 or 13th. It suddenly just drops in terms of quality, where you go from MLS depth pieces to MLS Next Pro starting caliber. And that gulf of difference is the delta is just so big, right? And it's so difficult to pluck in some of these pieces. But what I had asked Jim was, when do you start incorporating some of these guys that are going to be called upon? When Daniel Gazdag goes, when Jose Martinez, if he keeps it together leading into the selection for Copa America, Jack McGlynn, Nate Harrell, when do you start incorporating some of these guys that are on the bench week in and week out to get some time? So when they go in, Raffanello, which credit to him, did great against Portland, did what he had to do. They're not looking like deer, staring at headlights, right? Just sort of like awestruck. So I mean, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what they'll do, though. I think you could argue that teams have and are positioning themselves to make moves with the transfer window coming up, especially during Leagues Cup and what are leading into it. So I don't know that the Union are a team to do something like that this summer, though they did sign Ty in July last year, I believe, at some point.
July, August, one of those.
Yeah, I think it was like late July 22nd for some reason comes to mind. I think I remember where I was. I was out in Chambersburg visiting some folks for my actual job. And I was just sitting at my wife's cousin's place, having a 1:00 beer on a half day or something like that. And, they just signed an Israeli player. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. I heard the rumors, whatever. I don't know. I feel like the team's due for some moves, but we've been saying that for 3 years and it just doesn't happen. So certainly isn't going to be Kevin Sullivan. It's not going to be, I really don't think it's Vasquez either just yet. I have a hard time seeing how 18-year-old, or how old is
18,
Vasquez? 18. I don't see how, let's say, for example, 18-year-old Vasquez goes and performs against a Darlington Nagby, right? Like the gulf and difference of both physicality as well as skill is just massive. So I don't know. This team is just going to have to figure it out with the pieces that they have, because they've put themselves in a situation where they can't or won't bring back some of those loans. I don't know if you have a more creative idea on how they get through this, but it's you're right. They could have used Joaquin Torres, someone that can on the dribble split the lines, or again, Andres Perea, who split the lines against the Union when New York was in town. So they certainly could use more bodies, but would they use them? That's the other question.
Yeah, and Richard Adada, we know, is coming back. His loans ending today over in Denmark, and he had a purchase option. The club's not picking that up, so he'll come back to the Philadelphia Union. And okay, yeah, you get another body in the midfield, but that's not a creative player like you want. Or here's the issue too, right? And we can talk about it a little bit later. Richard Odata has played as center back, and no way in hell do I see Jim Curtin playing Richard Odata as center back if Jack Elliott's going to indeed be suspended for Inter Miami. Yes, he got that red card. We'll talk about that later because I have a couple clips lined up for the evening, like I always do. And one of those is Jim Curtin talking about that red card handed to Jack Elliott. But you brought up a player, Jeremy Raffanello, only played 3 games so far this season in MLS. His last appearance coming on May 18th against New England Revolution. Played 1 minute in the Union victory.
That's an easy paycheck.
His 2 starts this season came against Kansas City and Portland. And Portland, yeah, he looked good. Played all 90 minutes. And maybe you feel a little bit hard done that he hasn't played as much as maybe some fans would have wanted. And I don't know. I mean, you mentioned it too. Gazdag having a shot outside the box. I mean, the Union in the first half, this was, I thought, pretty interesting. All 3 of the shots on target came from outside of the box. Mikel Ure, Daniel Gazdag, and Jack McGlynn's free kick, which is interesting. And I think that's like Jeremy Raffanello's specialty is like shooting outside the box where he gets the ball to dip and then it bounces. And who knows what happens? You have people pouncing one to the loose ball and maybe you get a penalty like we saw last night with Daniel Gazdag. Maybe the ball goes in. I don't know. I mean, I'd love to say Jim's going to give Jeremy Raffanello a shot at the 10, but we haven't seen it too much this season. Another player who you kind of wish would have been featured a little bit more is Jesus Bueno. Why he's in Jim Curtin's doghouse, I'm not quite sure. And again, I look at Jesus as more of a defensive player, not offensively, but offensively he looked good last year in the League's Cup. And that's why we continue to see Jesus get start after start after start because he had a huge tournament. And I do ultimately believe because of how well he played in that tournament, it's why he got that new contract. And ever since he signed that contract, it's like he's just not getting game time. And you feel bad for him with all the injuries that he had last year where he never got to make his official debut with Venezuela, was on the 60-man roster that Venezuela put out for Copa, and then that had to get shaved down. He missed the cut. Jose Martinez is still on that list. But, yeah, I mean, there's no denying that things are going to look very, very different. And, I mean, we keep talking about it, so I was going to play this at the end, but might as well bring it up. I mean, the Union haven't won a game, like I said, in the intro since March 30th at home. They remain unbeaten on the road, which is so strange. And I don't know. I can't figure it out where we're so used to going to Subaru Park. And I'm not saying we're going to go to Subaru Park every single weekend and see 4, 5, 6, 7, 0 victories. And I talked about this with Kyle and Jillian, but you've become accustomed to the Union winning games and they just cannot do that at home. Back-to-back draws now. Okay, yeah, at least you're not losing, but you've got to take care of your business at home. And Subaru Park, for whatever reason, is just not intimidating, not a fortress like it was the last 5 years. And so Jim Curtin was asked last night, what do you make of your guys' home form compared to what you guys are doing on the road? And this is what he had to say.
Well, I hate it. I don't like it at all. We're a team that takes so much pride winning at home, and we've let our fans down. So I apologize for that. I'm in charge, and it hurts. Another great crowd tonight. Another performance that I think was deserving of 3 points, and we find ourselves in here with 1 again. So it hurts. We know that home field is critical. Having success here has been what we've been about. But we have to turn it around in the second part of the season. That's going to be the way we focus on things. It's hard to win games in this league. I think we've made it not look easy at times, but for a long stretch of a lot of years, we were unbeaten in here. And right now, it feels the exact opposite. It feels like nothing will go our way in this building. So we have to find a way to rectify that. I know that the group will stick together. We have to continue the good road form for sure. But I think I said it to you last week. We've been too extreme this year. We've played some really good soccer, and then we've given up some really silly goals. Part of that's continuity, players in, players out. That hurts. But every team goes through that. So again, we have to find a way to get a rhythm, get a break, create your own luck, and get on a run at home and now also on the road because we're behind in where we want to be points wise.
Yeah, and I mean, because you're not getting points at home, the Union 1-4-3 at home, 3-0-5 on the road. Now I feel like that puts a little bit more pressure on the road because not only do you need points on the road, but you need 3 points. And I said this a couple episodes ago, like the Union, there's no reason why they didn't get 6 points against Toronto, against Montreal. And I get it. Toronto's a much better team. We saw that. And the Union struggled to break down them playing 3-5-2, playing man marking. I mean, you guys talked about it. Jack McGlynn, Daniel Gazdag could not do anything against being man marked. And Coelho looked fantastic for Toronto. And then we see Montreal come out, play 3 in the back. And we'll talk about the formation 2 here in a bit. But I don't know. It's just so crazy to me that this team, for whatever reason, cannot win games at home. And you look, 8th place, which tells you, one, that MLS playoffs are a joke, that the Union, if the season ended right now, they'd be in the playoffs with 20 points, 4-4 and 8 record. I mean, don't even get me started on that. I mean, this is a team that if playoffs started today, they'd be bounced, I would say, in the first 2 games. They just don't strike me as a team that is all that confident. They're a team that's a lot of mistakes, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, too. But I don't know. I mean, on the road, they just look a lot more confident. And Jim Curtin talked about that a couple weeks ago. We're saying, it's just not that pressure playing on the road because you're expected to get all 3 points at home. And on the road, it's like, okay, you guys are the underdogs. You're coming in. And so it's like you make the home team work. And that's what we're seeing the road teams doing when they come into the Subaru Park, making the Union work. And I feel like we've all been saying this the last couple of years. You want to beat the Union, you force them to have possession, and you force them to beat you down with the ball. You play a low block, and what did Toronto do? What did Montreal do? Play a low block. We've seen teams in the past do it as well. And so I don't know why it's taken this long for teams to play that way at Subaru Park, but it seems like teams have finally caught on, and the Union just don't have an answer for it at Subaru Park right now.
And just to confirm, and honestly, last year being the first new year of the new format, I should say, 8 and 9 play each other to then become the number 8 seed, right?
Correct.
Okay. So to me, what strikes me the most is it's hard to believe, and obviously you, myself, others, anyone listening, we're just so into or so in the Union bubble that it is so unbelievably hard to understand and figure out how there are 7 teams worse than the Union because it doesn't feel that way, right? Which is the results that fans have witnessed and us as media members have watched and dissected and talked about and asked questions about. So it's hard to believe that there are 7 teams worse than the Union, but I don't know, man. Like I think you sort of nailed it in the head, right? Is the away form because they feel like they have nothing to lose, right? That there's no pressure whatsoever in terms of going out there and give it your all, right? And feeling good with whatever comes out of the road because you're barely expected to draw and walk away with a point because the reality is in most leagues, and I've been saying this for like a year or two, and it's nothing original, so God, don't credit me with it, but like win at home, draw away. In most leagues in the world, that wins you championships. Obviously, in MLS is a little bit different because of the playoffs, the way that they are. But in the Premier League championship, though those have playoffs, but promotion, etc. Win at home, draw away, gets it done. I don't know what is going on at home, right? And honestly, I personally, Todd, I am so ready for the Union to win 2 straight at home, to stop reading dumb articles and dumb tweets about Union yards. I'm so done. I'm so done. And yeah, I made one joke yesterday, but that's the only one I'm ever going to make about Union yards. I'm just so ready for this whole thing to be done. And if that's the reason, I think fine. Though I would attribute it more to Jim Curtin's attire, though. Todd, no tie from Jim yesterday. See, and I wasn't at the game. Full transparency, I was just enjoying vacation and getting back home last night. I just wasn't gonna make the trip to the game. So I didn't. Did he not wear a tie all game, or did that tie come off after the game? In terms of like frustration.
That's a good question. I mean, obviously, like in the press box, his back's always turned to us. So I didn't really pay attention to that too much. But yeah, you're right. I mean, in the press conference, definitely did not have that tie on.
No, and he looks so flustered, right? And I think that the one comment, and I don't know if this is a clip you're gonna play, so I apologize. But I think it was his opening statement where it's like he kept on going on, and then he's like, self-inflicted things are happening. Like he's just out of words onto what's going on
And he
with
said
this
that multiple
group.
times this season too.
Yes, yes, and it's to the point where like, okay, man, like I get it, or at least I get it, right? He's frustrated, right? Because I think for the longest time, and some people would probably say, and I know maybe we're deviating away from your question, Todd, so I apologize, but like this is 5 years on the bounce that the ball maybe has bounced in the way or in favor of the Union, right? For a lot of different decisions, a lot of different ways. Obviously, 2022, the ball bounced all the way to the end line, to the goal line, I should say, and it just didn't go in. Clearly punted to the other end and scored on by LAFC, in terms of them winning. But maybe this is just karma catching up with the Union, right? Like your luck only gets you so far, and it's been 5 years of sort of the same roster, same formation, same tactics. Yes, people have come and gone in terms of some players, coaching staff as well. Pat Noonan, see how well he's doing. Chris Albright, obviously, as well. Just it makes you wonder, right? Is it just the time for? Is it a mixture of a roster that has been dragged through this too many years, and a league that is spending more, right? And this is what worries me the most. And within the next few months, we'll finally hear the changes in terms of the designated player and the under 22 initiative for the roster. The Union feel like a team that will stay static, uh, while other teams are going to be ambitious and try to go for it. So it makes you wonder if this is what it is right now with the players that they have. What does Nashville do? They have flexibility. What does Charlotte do? They have a ton of flexibility. Toronto's sort of handcuffed for a few years with the Italians and how much they're paying them. New York is handcuffed as well. Red Bulls, I should say. I think New York City FC has a little bit of flexibility. So you look at some of those teams above, that have that flexibility. It makes you wonder, how can the Union catch up? Never mind. DC United, I think, have a little bit of flexibility. I don't think they have many U22s. If anything, they have a lot of college kids that they drafted. I don't know. It's such an, I don't know. Is it an influx point to you, Todd, in terms of like where the Union are? And I know this is maybe like macro level conversation, and I'm completely taking this off the rails, but like, does it feel like it's everything I sort of mentioned, like just a big old mix of luck running out, teams catching up, lapping the Union, and sort of luck just gone?
Yeah, so when you were talking, I was just trying to find this exact quote. So I'm going to say what I remember. This isn't word for word, but it was either last year or 2022. I can't remember. Do you remember when The Athletic put out a report and they interviewed all these people, and some GM or somebody, when talking about the Union, said they're not that effing good. All they do is kick the shit out of you or something like that. Whoever said that quote, they probably feel so good about themselves right now. See,
Yes.
saying, look, see, I told you, they're not a good team. They were just so lucky and everything. They try to annoy the hell out of you. And look, I was right. And I wonder, we're not going to find out who said that, because, that would just be not
Super
good for that
anonymous.
person. But I guarantee you that person, whoever said that, it's like, I called it, and you guys didn't want to believe me. And look, everything I try to tell you guys is coming true. They're just an average team in MLS. And that might be it, honestly. Like, Jim Curtin's also mentioned it before. They've had multiple players this season that are having good individual seasons, but as a team, they're just not having a good season overall. Like, it makes no sense to me, and especially at home. And I think you get the sense just like hearing it in the crowd. I mean, 50 seconds is all it took for Montreal to score yesterday. And the Reverend's already chanting, "Hey, Union, wake the F up." Like, what are we doing? Like, that chant, and like, none of the chant should affect me and everything. It's like, people are going to support the team however they want, but it's like, 50 seconds into the game, why are we chanting this? Or, hey, Union, we want 3 points after it's 2-2. I don't know. I feel like there's a time and the place, and I don't know. I mean, The Subaru Park, in my opinion, and I know Jim said, credit to the fans and the atmosphere and everything was good, but as the head coach, if he's not saying that he's going to get crucified by the fans, so I get why Jim's saying that, but
Right.
I don't know. I don't think the atmosphere has been that great this season in MLS play, and I've only been to two away games so far this season: Nashville and DC United. DC United, that game had much better support than I've seen anything from the Union this season. Um, I mean, you listen to some of these other games and everything. And I get it, right? Because it's all depending on where the mics are positioned and everything, and so the stadiums might sound a little louder than what they actually are. But I don't think Subaru Park's an intimidating atmosphere at all this season. And maybe you're right. Maybe the luck is running out. And like I said, whoever that anonymous person was in the Athletic article where they said they're not a good team, and maybe they were right. I mean, as harsh as it might feel to say, like maybe they're right. And it goes back to the point where, look, fans I know want another striker, and if Julian Kranza comes, I mean that's a real issue for the Union. Okay, do you go out and get another striker? But I think the biggest thing for this team is they need a creative player. They need a player that can take on opponents 1v1. They haven't had that player since El Sino. And you would like for a player that can take on players 1v1, that they have that passing ability. And I know you mentioned maybe a little bit jokingly, but a little bit serious too. Emmanuel Reynoso would have been fantastic for the Union. And I don't know.
I was on that boat all along. Like, send him to Chester. Put him through, punishment for him for doing all this dumb stuff at Minnesota. Bring him to Chester for 2-3 years. And yeah, joking, but man, what a player he would be in Philadelphia. I really do think he would shine.
And he's obviously with Tijuana. Minnesota sold him. So, yeah, he's not coming to Chester. For all you people that haven't been paying attention to what's been going on in MLS. And my apologies. I know I was supposed to do the news segment, but I just felt like Jose and I always go so long. So I didn't want to give you guys an hour 30 episode. So we purposely cut out the news segment, and we'll figure out what to do with that midweek or whatnot. But I don't know. For me, it's like you need another creative player. You need a 10. And what about this? I mean, I don't know how Danny would feel about it, but let's say you do sell Julian Kranza to Feyenoord, and then you play Daniel Gazdag as the striker next to Mikael Uhre. I mean, could that work? I don't know. I mean, see how well it can work until it doesn't work. Just the one thing that's just so obvious to me is they don't have that creative 10 that so many teams in MLS have. New England with Carlos Gil. Can you imagine him, Carlos Gil, with the Union? I mean, Kyle says this all the time to me. Imagine Luciano Acosta with the Philadelphia Union, and how many more goals Mikael Uhre would have just having that creative 10. I do think Mikael would probably have a little bit more goals, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like if we had the answers why the Union aren't winning at home, then Jim Curtin would probably hire us on his coaching staff.
I mean, don't even think about Luciano Acosta, right? Think about Facundo Torres out of Orlando, right? Like what a great player he would be. And we don't even have to talk about Thiago Almada, how wonderful he is, right? I'm thinking of all these, what feels like this year bottom feeder teams, though I have to be careful with the terminology because the Union are not too far away from being a bottom feeding team in terms of, a couple of results that, this Montreal game could have been a loss, honestly. And it felt like it should have been a loss, all despite everything that Jim has said. What the Union would be with a creative 10 would be very, very interesting. And to your point of what does this team look like after Julian Carranza goes, that's an interesting question because it feels like we're seeing it now. Obviously, two games on the bounce without him, and two anemic responses from the team in terms of performances and dealing with not having, fair to say, their best player on the squad. He's certainly, in my opinion, lapped Andre at this point in his career. Obviously, the injuries don't help, but I would say that Carranza is a far more important piece than Andre right now, in how they play and what they do, or over the years now. So is this what this team becomes without Carranza? I guess so. Do they? Because what's the answer, Todd? Then, right? Like, I think your explanation or you're thinking of is it Gazdag moving up, then who plays the 10? Which
you have to go out and get a
believe,
10 then, if that's what happens.
and that's totally right. Which leads me to believe that what the Union will do is keep Gazdag where he is. Marcus Anderson, welcome to the first team, first sheet every single game, starting 11, because you're ahead of probably Donovan at this point, and certainly Ty Baribo. So go ahead, Marcus. Show us why you were bought from the third division of from Spain. I don't even remember the team anymore. It's and I remember teaching you how to say it.
I'm not even going to try it.
That's okay. So yeah, it's such an influx point for this team, and I think the excuse or the reasoning that it's early in the season no longer applies, because this is genuinely the halfway point, right? It's not the quarter season. It's not 1/10 of the season or anything like that. It is genuinely, because what is it? 34 matches? Is that what it is for the year?
Yep.
Yeah. It's Union are one game away from being halfway through, and Miami is one game over the halfway mark. So that gives, I mean, for some people that, or in other sports like NBA, NFL, that gives teams reason to worry and start planning. Is it time to dismantle, or is it time to move on from players, etc.? I wonder if the Union are treating it that way. I don't think so, but
it makes it a lot easier to move on from Julian Kranz and Jack McGlynn, in my opinion.
I would think so too. When you're having this type of form and you're 16 games through the season, and it's hard to see how this team becomes a tournament team at this point, right? Because that's really what it's going to come down to. Position themselves, because they're not going to be a supporter shield team, obviously. Right now, they're struggling to even be part of the tournament in terms of the playoffs, having to beat, as of right now, a Nashville team. And I don't think that maybe they'll climb. Hopefully, they'll climb to be part of the regular playoff and try to beat a team best out of 3, which you can no longer count home as a victory or a draw, though you can count probably on a draw away from home. Interestingly enough,
penalties,
yeah, which would go into penalties. So,
but then you also don't feel confident with this team on penalties.
No, you don't, and you just don't feel comfortable or confident at all, Todd. And that's the issue with where this team is. And how do you build confidence? It's not by talking about it. It's not by kicking around it. It's by actually doing it. And the team just hasn't done a lot of things to ensue a lot of confidence, from the play on the field to maybe the tactics to even the front office making moves that ensue a lot of confidence. Because Marcus Anderson, at this point, I'm starting to think that he may be made out of glass, right? And comes back, gets injured, comes back, gets injured. I think he's a totally fine person in the time I've talked with him when he was available for interviews. Really excited to be in Philadelphia and finally speak English to people and not have to speak Spanish, which was sort of a funny anecdote that he shared with me. But ultimately, like Marcus Anderson, Ty Baribo, like, what is going on? And I think this is something to really keep an eye on, Todd, is if this team decides to dismantle in a way, right, with the Carranza sale, and is there a sale for McGlynn? And obviously a lot of chatter from the mustachioed man about, someone who could be on the move. What do the Union then do with that roster flexibility plus the 2 contract buyouts that they would be allotted? Would they use them? Have the Union ever used a contract buyout?
I don't think so, ever.
Okay. Could this be the year that they use it? Because I could envision a world where they buy out 2 players that just haven't worked out. And I think you know who they are, at least in my opinion, because you and I talk, but like buy out Ty Baribo and all the way through Macanya, like just 2 players that are making entirely too much money. One being an MLS Next Pro player making $260,000. And then Ty Baribo, $760K. Imagine pooling all that money together to give Julian Carranza alone that $1 million raise, doubling his salary, right? So again, I don't know. At this point, I feel like I'm just complaining about where this team is. But it's weird, and how spoiled as a fan and as press we have been to watch this team and trusting it, right, with its lack of movement in the market. or lack of movement on what would seem like higher upside moves, maybe, rather than just, okay, I'll trust you with this guy from the fourth division of Denmark. Like, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you feel about it all.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I also agree that I don't see this team just having a fire sale in the summertime and saying, yeah, all right, well, we're just punting on the season. I don't think they would do that because there's no way that the fans would accept that. I mean,
A team that should is Atlanta.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Which is interesting too, because when I was looking at the standings, we saw Gary Smith get fired from Nashville, and they're in 9th place, right one spot below the Union. And I'm not saying Jim Curtin's going to get fired. There's no reason why he should get fired, but it's funny that a team that's barely below the Union fired their manager, and they've had success in the playoffs. Yeah, they haven't got to MLS Cup like they would have wanted to, but at the same time, too, look how long it took the Union to get to MLS Cup playoffs. 12 years, insane. So I don't know. I think some of these teams are a little bit too trigger happy, especially when there's no promotion relegation. But that's a Nashville problem. It's not our problem. But I don't know. It's just it's so interesting what this team's going to do come the summertime. And this team, Jim Curtin, we haven't even talked about this game yet. We're talking about everything.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
That's happened before, and that's totally fine. But I don't know. It's a lot of questions to make you think. And I was looking at the Union schedule while you were talking. Into Miami at home. This is just their home schedule, by the way. So into Miami, they were a playoff team last season. Charlotte, they were technically a playoff team last year, right? They played against into Miami, I want to say it was, and then lost in the playing game. Does that sound about right? I think it sounds about right.
I think so, yeah, because I think they did play in the play, and who they beat or lost to is escaping me.
Then you have New York Red Bulls, playoff team. New England Revolution, playoff team. Nashville, playoff team. Columbus, playoff team. DC
Hold up.
United.
Did you say New England Revolution's a playoff team this year?
Last year.
Oh, last year. Okay.
These are teams that were playoff teams last year. Sorry.
Gotcha.
DC United weren't in the playoffs. Atlanta were in the playoffs. Cincinnati obviously in the playoffs. So that's your remaining schedule. And yeah, obviously New England Revolution don't look like a playoff team this season. DC United, I don't know. I feel like they sit in 10th place, but I feel like they've looked a lot better than their record indicates, in my opinion.
A lot of Benteke talk.
Got hurt, so I mean that could be just the nail in the coffin for them. Nashville don't really look like a playoff team, and I guess that's why they fired Gary Smith this season. Columbus haven't looked the same, and then we hear reports that the whole team gets sick before the CONCACAF Champions Cup final. I said Champions League sounds so much better, but apparently like 20 players and staff members had diarrhea, so they didn't feel good. And so I don't know. I mean, use that as an excuse if you want, but I don't know. Columbus hasn't really looked great in the league this season. Atlanta hasn't looked great, but I don't know. Just the Union have always struggled against Atlanta. I mean, last year, the Union, I believe, were up like 3-1, and then the game ended 3-2. So I don't know. I mean, it scares me seeing Atlanta come in here, not a playoff team. And I don't know, just the way this team is at home. I don't know. I don't have confidence that they can beat anybody at home right now. And like Kyle and I were talking, I'm like, what do you think? What are you predicting? And he's like, I think he said a win. I'm like, dude, I just don't feel any confidence. Like I'm expecting a loss every single time I go into Subaru Park now. And then the Union's last game of the season's against Cincinnati. So, I mean, the remaining 9 games at home aren't easy whatsoever. And you feel like 7 out of 9 of those games are must win, in my opinion. I mean, you've got to win your home games. To have 1 home game win in 8 matches, it's totally unacceptable for this team right now. But to talk about this game, and you guys are probably like, oh, finally, you guys are going to give your thoughts on this game. The Union conceded in the first 50 seconds in this game, and I kind of feel bad asking Jim Curtin this question where
that was funny.
It's not. And Jim's like, yeah, I knew the question about the formation is going to get called into it, which, I mean, in my opinion, when you can see 50 seconds into the game, that's not a formation issue. But the ideas, the tactical plans you had coming into this game kind of gets thrown out of the window when you concede so early in this game. And when you don't track your runner, Jose Martinez, Yeah, things start to fall apart. So this is what Jim Curtin had to say about conceding 50 seconds into the game and how he thought the 3-5-2 formation played in the first half.
Yeah, look, again, I knew once we concede right away, it's going to be the formation is the problem. But yeah, look, again, the goal aside, I thought that the first half, the guys really did a good job out of the three. You know, we had some good width with Mbaizo and Kai were aggressive. I thought Jack McGlynn was getting on the ball in pockets and playing forward. We created some chances. And, you know, we went into that formation without, you know, having with Julian being out, you know, trying to find a way to kind of just manufacture a win. And I thought the guys executed and did a good job. But then the game got crazy with the red cards and, you know, things happened and it was difficult. But I still think that there's some positives from the formation of things. There's nothing positive about the tie, but there are positives about how the guys executed out of the three-man back line. They did a good job.
And Jim talked about it multiple times. Like listening to him, I was like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it kind of seems like you're positive with what you saw with the formation. Yes, you can see 50 seconds in the game. And again, you know, that's not a formation issue. It's just not being checked in fully. I mean, it's unexcusable why Jose Martinez didn't track Ibrahim, where Jack Elliott had the guy covered on the ball, and Jose Martinez, whatever, goes towards the ball too. There's no reason for it, and you leave Ibrahim completely unmarked. And I think it's not a powerful shot; it's an accurate shot, and I think Zemla probably could have done better on that shot. I mean, getting beat from outside the box on a shot that's not a rocket. I mean, there's no excuses for that, and maybe he was blocked a little bit. He saw it late, whatever the case may be, but. I don't know. I mean, we saw the same thing down in Nashville. The Union struggled in the 3-5-2 down there. They were losing 1-0. They play it up until like the 58th minute. Then they switched to the 4-4-2 diamond. The Union come out of the break and switch to the 4-4-2 diamond. I also asked Jim about that too. I'm like, you know, I knew what he was going to say because you don't want to have three center backs when you're down a goal. You want to put more attacking players on because you're at home and they're down a man. And so I do think we saw this formation maybe play a little bit better in the first half because Montreal was down a man. But at the same time, too, Lassiter didn't get red card until what, the 42nd minute or something like that. It was pretty late in the first half, I believe it was. So, I mean, you can't really say that the red card had too much of an effect in the first half when it was so late in the first half. And I mentioned it earlier, only 3 shots on target for the Union in the first half, and 3 of those shots came from outside of the box. And we're not used to seeing this team take those type of shots. And again, it's, you know, Montreal gets the early goal. And so now they can sit back deep and really force the Union to break them down with the ball. And one player, and we can talk about him a little bit later or talk about him now if you want, is Jack McGlynn. I thought he had a fantastic game. I mean, line splitting pass after line splitting pass. And we saw that it led to the penalty kick where he played the ball into Mikau Ua. Mikau Ua cuts inside to his right, has a shot. Breza spills the ball. Daniel Gazdag sees that and then eventually gets the penalty kick awarded to him. But Jack McGlynn was excellent. And, you know, if you don't have that 1v1 creator on the dribble, then you want players that can just play that line splitting pass. You're creative players. And you're only 2 creative players because Quinn Sullivan didn't start this game is Kai Wagner and Jack McGlynn. And I think both of those guys created a lot of chances for the Union. And unfortunately for them, they could only score 2 goals, but I don't know. How do you feel about the formation? I mean, it's so hard for me, in my opinion, to judge when you can see that early, which again, it's not a formation issue, but I don't know if this team has the skill set to really play a 3-5-2.
Yeah, gosh, where to start? I mean, Jack McGlynn was, to me, and not just because of numbers, but genuine eye test, just the best player on that field. Yes, you could argue that, you know, Mikau Ua because of his goal and the pressure that he puts off the ball, etc. But Jack McGlynn was just pinging balls left and right. Yes, he takes a negative pass here and there, but just to keep possession, frankly. And obviously the Union had a lot of that, more than usual this game. I think it was in the 60s. I can't remember. It was pretty high up there in terms of possession.
62.
At least 62. That's very high for a Union home
62 in
game.
the first half, 67 overall. Sorry.
That's pretty damn
Very
high
high.
for a Union game. Yeah. So, and obviously a lot of that comes from those, between the 42nd minute and when did the Elliott red card happen? God.
Putting me on the spot. I mean, 65th, 66th, it sounds about right. I'm
63rd minute. So like that time there probably gave the Union a good chunk of building that possession. But overall, Jack was fantastic. Can they do another formation? I don't think so, because when they try to switch it up, they still go to
the diamond.
And yeah, it's still having to revert back to the diamond because that's what they're comfortable with. And I forget which player said it. Maybe it was Jack to you, Todd. The game I was in North Carolina, I forget who they played against. Was it DC? It might have, yeah, it was the DC game. Maybe it was him or on that game, but someone had asked them, or it might have been you, like what were something, and Jack's like, yeah, we reverted back to the diamond, what we're comfortable
Kyle
to.
asked that,
Yeah, thank you. Which leads you to believe, like, if it's not the diamond, this team is not getting it done, right? Because it seems like that is the one that's drilled to their head, that they feel comfortable with, that they go with on the road mainly, right? So maybe that's the one that is that they're the most comfortable with. And this is a team that even with a man up, when that happened, I thought, oh, what great luck.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I thought, oh, this is going to end up in a draw or something like that, right? And texting our good friend Mark Kelkenberg, like, if they don't draw this, let alone win, what a disaster this is going to be, because this is the epitome of bad hair. Your hair looks fantastic, Todd.
Thank you.
Having all that time with a man up, which I think they could have won it, honestly, had they not had the Elliott red card, which I don't know if we're going to delve too much into that situation. But nonetheless, I don't think that there's a formation change that makes sense for this team, again, without a creative number 10 or a line splitting winger, which obviously they don't play with wingers, though Curtin claims that they have some. I don't think so, because I think they traded or sent away all of their wingers.
Anderson and Sullivan, I would say, are probably your two that would be best as a winger.
Right. And even then it's kind of like, I'm not sure about that, but I could be wrong. Yeah, I just don't see how this team changes from the diamond to something else. And the back three, I think the only change I could genuinely see is if Martinez gets injured, I could see Lowe jumping in the pecking order and playing that number 6 position, because it was fantastic and fun to watch, because he held out the United States for like over 90 minutes, right, as a number 6 over Nations League's Cup. All these names get so confusing. So yeah, I don't know. Without purchasing some more bodies that are capable, that this team it's the diamond week in and week out. So get used to it.
Even though Jim said that they have to change the formation with all these international competitions, and I'm not even sure what you can really switch to, because you can't play with 3 in the back. I mean,
I'll believe it when I see it.
I mean, I guess you could potentially play with 3 in the back with Harry Iglesias and Elliott, which I don't know why you would do that, because now you're going to have no fullbacks on the bench, which is also an issue too, by the way, where you don't have a backup left back. Where, okay, let's say, and now if you play Nate Harrier as a center back, now you don't have a backup right back, because you're going to play Olivier Bizo as a right wing back. I don't know. It goes back to your point where this team has a depth issue, and I get why they loaned out Matt Real, because he needed playing time and he probably wasn't happy sitting on the bench. But I don't know. I mean, this team seems so screwed, and I've said it too before. It's like when Nate, assuming he gets caught up for the Olympics, if I'm Jim Curtin and the coaching staff, I'm not comfortable playing Olivier Bazé week out as a right back. I mean, he's proved that he's injury prone, mistake prone, mistakes all the time. And I thought he didn't do anything last night to hurt himself, but
yes, he did. Yes, he did, Todd. There was a lot that he did to hurt himself, and in terms of God, even the way he plays. Or I'm trying to find, I clipped it, and it was just like one of those goofy moments where, and I forget at what minute. Here it is. It was on the 26th minute where he earns the ball back after it's bounced about a bit in the final third of the attack, and Flock gets it, and Bizo's going towards Flock, who's running at the ball, and sort of like pretends like he's gonna take it, and then he puts his arms up like he's gonna like take it, and they completely lose possession.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Montreal's starting to go on the attack, and Jose Martinez has to foul to sort of lose his like caution, right? And then next one's gonna be a yellow. It was a professional foul. Good on Jose for realizing like, okay, I'm in a situation where this guy can just sprint down the line and create something that's going to put us further down after being a goal down. And Bizo is just one of those characters where it's just like, man, I wonder if his clock was up maybe last year at some point, right? Like in terms of a sale, or maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, who knows? But it's this, and honestly, again, I didn't even know Matt Real was loaned. I completely forgot. Completely forgot that he was over with the Switchbacks and God, what's his name? Jambo. I remember that was his nickname, but the ex-Bethlehem Steel player. Yeah, thank you. God, man, so many players. Because I was just thinking, like, would the Union pay to break a recall and just bring them back, right? Completely break the contract and bring a recall like a Brandon Craig or a Matt Real? And of course, absolutely not. And frankly, those players are probably entirely too happy playing away from Subaru, actually playing away from Philadelphia. So yeah, this team is just, this is what it's going to be, unfortunately, unless there's like a majestic or incredible turnaround, which I doubt, because it's going to be all disjointed with players coming and going. And then who knows how far they go into Leagues Cup. I know I've said to you offline or off the microphone, Todd, like I genuinely hope that the Union either go ahead and win it or lose right away in terms of not getting out of the group stage, or whatever you want to call it, best out of three stage and for Leagues Cup, just because it's that team just needs practice, just needs to sort themselves out, and going into the quarterfinals or the semifinals of Leagues Cup, it's not going to be any help whatsoever, because that's just more mileage on the legs of some of these players like Lesnes, who are not going with their international teams. Never mind players that would go with their international teams and then come back at some point to be tossed into whatever the later stages of Leagues Cup. It's either you're going to go all for it and win it, or you're just going to not, I don't want to say not try, but like you're just, listen, Cruz Azul and Charlotte, good luck, right? Like have fun. We'll step out. We'll bow out for, what was it last year? Like 3 weeks some of these teams had without any games whatsoever. Yeah, it's something crazy like that. I think the Union could probably use that time to get healthy, get Andre healthy. Never mind which Andre will be hopefully internationally, but get some players healthy and just try new things, sort out themselves. I don't know. I'm again ranting at this point.
Well, I'm glad you were, because, not that anybody listening was curious about this, but I think this might blow your mind. So since Colorado Springs had signed Matt Real on loan, 6 straight games, they haven't lost. They're on a 5-game winning streak since that 1-1 draw in Matt Real's debut with the Switchbacks. And I don't know, yeah, maybe the Union need to bring him back. Maybe Matt Real was bringing the good luck.
You said 6 straight wins since Matt Real joined Colorado?
Yeah, 5 straight wins, 6 undefeated.
Holy smokes, man. Maybe he was the missing link, and Jim and company just did not know it.
Yeah, maybe it's not Union yards. Maybe it's because Matt Real's not there anymore.
Oh my God. You just blew my mind. That is actually pretty wild. Oh.
It is. It's like, I wonder if they have a loan back in that.
I personally don't know, but I can't imagine that Matt Real would be happy to come back.
Yeah, just to sit on the bench and not be playing. So, yeah.
Well, like, what are his minutes? Like,
he's
475 minutes. Yeah. 6 matches, 6 starts. Like, why would he want to come back?
He wouldn't.
Right. Why would he want to? Just enjoy it, Matt. Enjoy the minutes, man. Because
Colorado is better
than playing. Yeah. Well, I've never been, though I declined a job offer there. I'm guessing that again, like 470 minutes of playing time, which probably laps a lot of years that he was with the Union, right? Like this is fantastic. If anything, that the final nail in the coffin for some of these guys, like the Brendan Craigs and the Matt Reals, was probably, at least for this year, was the Philadelphia not being part of the U.S. Open Cup.
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah, just not, or at least 90 minutes, or at least 60 or 70 minutes that they would play, just completely wiped off. And where do you go from there? Because those guys have absolutely graduated from MLS Next Pro. There's no reason for them to be playing that at this point, though, making a lot less money than Owaithe Makanya.
Exactly. So we don't have to spend too much time talking about it, but it is the red card given out to Jack Elliott. What a crazy call. And like, I mean, in one way, yeah, Jack Elliott does get his spikes into the knee of Raheem Edwards, but at the same time too, he wins the ball. He's already committed to the challenge. What's he supposed to do when he wins the ball? Where is he supposed to put his legs? And so, that was pretty controversial last night on Union Twitter, where you had some fans saying, oh, 100% red card. You had some people saying, nope, not a red card. You had some people in the press box saying that's a red card. And then after the game, changing their mind and saying, oh, nope, that's only a yellow card. Well, Jim Curtin was asked after the game, what exactly do you make of that situation? And this is what he had to say.
The collision happens. Jack does win the ball, though. The ball is won. I think that's clear. I wish they would have took a deep breath, went to the video and watched it, because, yes, I know there's an injury, and I feel bad for that, but I don't think it's a red card. I just don't. So I get serious foul play because, again, a guy's injured and has to leave the field on a stretcher. I get that, but I still think Jack's making a soccer play. He didn't have his studs up. He didn't hit him, in a way that I thought was violent or reckless. But that's the call. We have to live with it, and we still have to Matt's point, close out, mark our men on that free kick, and we shouldn't concede that quickly.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. It's like, as soon as Jack Elliott sent off, Montreal have a free kick opportunity, and they score. And it's the first time in the season that the Union have conceded a set piece, and Mikau Ua lets his guy get goal side, and Mikau Ua should have defended that a lot better. And you saw, I don't think on the broadcast, but the Union wanted to try to get Nate Harry on there. They couldn't. And, you're kind of stuck with who you have out there, and you hope that they understand their assignment on their marking, and you hope that you guys don't concede a goal. And that's exactly what they do. And my whole issue with that, if you go back and watch that goal, is, okay, as soon as the ball comes off of Mikel's knee and it hits the post, you have 5 players for the Union inside the box that aren't continuing to run, aren't continuing to track the Montreal attackers. They all react to the ball coming off the post. It's kind of like what we saw with Daniel Gazdag. Breza spills the ball and he continues to run, and then he gets the penalty. I just don't understand. It's like, why people have their hands on their hips, why they're just checked out. Like, all right, we're just going to go ahead and concede this. Like, it makes no sense to me. You guys had just scored back-to-back goals with Daniel Gazdag and Mikau Ua. You're up. Yes, momentum's gone a little bit because Jack Elliott gets that red card, which in my opinion is not a red card, but it's a horribly defended set piece, and it's a horrible call by Ted Uncle, which, by the way, is going to be blunder of the week for all you guys listening, because he initially gives a yellow card, and then he gives the red card. And Joe Tanzi got to ask Ted Uncle, as the pool reporter, what went into that, because the yellow card was initially given. It was upgraded to a red card by Ted Uncle because of a serious foul play. The decision was made solely by Ted Uncle, and then he decided not to get VAR involved, which is insane to me that VAR didn't have a look at this. I think if they would have, I think, it's a yellow card at best. And again, I agree with Jim, yeah, he takes his studs and it hits his knee, but it's like, what's he supposed to do? He's like 6'5", 6'6". It's like he's committed to the ball. Both players are committed to the ball. Jack Elliott gets to the ball first. He wins the ball. And then what's he supposed to do? Like, do a split or something and now avoid? Like, no, his momentum's taking him into Edwards. It sucks that it happens, but I don't know. I think that's one of those plays where it had to go to VAR. And yeah, I mean, you could feel as soon as the red card was given, it kind of took the air out of the stadium.
Yeah, and it took the air out of my wanting to watch the game anymore from home. So I'll tell you that much. It's one of those moments where I guess I could see it both ways in a way of, yes, they both went for it. So they're both at fault in a way. Because say it was Edwards, right? Say Edwards gets the ball and Jack's the one who's got blood coming out of his knee, and I don't know if it was true or not, but I just, again, like scrolling through my feed and just trying to find more information on it. Someone had mentioned like bone showing from the challenge or whatever. I don't know, whatever. Had Jack been the one on the receiving end, does that mean that Edwards is getting a red card? I don't know. I don't think so. Or well, obviously in a different universe we would find out. But to me, listen, I am not a referee. I trust other people who are referees, who have refereed at various levels, collegiate, high school, etc. And those that I spoke with mentioned that it probably should not have been a foul since both players went.
Yeah, they're both
at the
committed.
same time. They're both committed to the challenge and they both went for it. It just happens that one is, I don't know how tall Edwards is, if he can give it a quick surge, but obviously we know that Mr. Elliott is gigantic. Firsthand, we know this because when we talked to him at the mix zone, 5'8" versus 6'5", 6'6", Jack, right? It's just what the hell is he supposed to do, right? That's a lot of length to have to make up. So, yeah, to me, it's difficult to say that the red card was the reason why the Union ended up drawing, because you can obviously go back 20, 30 seconds and try to figure out what led to the point that Jack had to go into that 50-50 challenge and led to him getting this red card. But you also can't forget or not think about Ted Uncle sort of breaking protocol and just because he saw blood and a stretcher coming, that this guy needs to get a red card. It's sort of, is it unprecedented, Todd? Like I
think so.
Okay. I was thinking about that last night and thinking, is this, and it seems like Montreal is the team that leads to unprecedented things. Last year in March, the Union against Montreal at Montreal, albeit VAR used to correct VAR. So this year we get Ted Uncle avoiding VAR to make a change in his ruling from a yellow to a red card. It seems like Montreal is just a team of firsts, and that's fine. It just seems like those firsts continue to, as Jim would say, bounce against the Union. I don't know what to make of it, and I wonder if there's a betting line. I should ask Mike Barrera if there's a betting line for the red card being turned over, because I could genuinely see that red card just being, oh no, Ted did not follow protocol, so it's not a red. But then that also sort of makes Pro look bad. So it'll be really fascinating to see. I don't know how soon would they turn around that decision, since there's no game till the 15th. They wouldn't wait till a week from now, right? Like all the games are done. Yeah, this should be something that's decided tomorrow or the day after, I would think. I don't know that there's much deliberation to be done at this point, because Charlotte Atlanta was the only game today, right?
Yeah. Just Charlotte and Atlanta, yeah. Which, by the way, Atlanta lost again.
Yeah, incredible losing. If you listener thought that the Union have had a bad record, just watch Atlanta play at home. It's awful. How Pineda has a job is unbelievable. Long way to say, I think everything that would need to be reviewed by the disciplinary committee is in. I don't know that they wait much longer to make decisions, and obviously the Union have to be the first ones, I think, to initiate the challenge, right, to reverse it. And I know Jim mentioned that he I don't think he mentioned whether or not they would, but that it's something that obviously they could do.
Yeah, he hinted that they could appeal it.
Yeah, and I think they should. It's one of those where whether it was right or wrong, it's something that I think Ted Uncle unilaterally making the decision totally would allot the card to be rescinded. Now, had he gone to the monitor and said, "Oh, dang, this looks awful," yeah, he's getting a red card, I could see it sticking. But otherwise, he sort of just broke protocol. Have to throw it along, throw it out.
Yep, 100%. I agree, and uh, I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't even want to think about the Inter Miami game with all these players missing, and I don't know. I'm just like so disappointed. And I remember us all asking the players a month and a half ago. You guys all know that a lot of players are going away, and like, do you guys feel confident that you're take care of what you guys need to take care of at home before you all leave? And Daniel Gazdag specifically, which I feel like he's talking to the media every single game, which I don't know, like, well, once he decide, okay, I don't want to talk to the media anymore, I have nothing else to say, but he's like, yeah, we have confidence that we'll take care of our business. And one win all season at home. It's really, really disappointing. And 4 wins in 16 games. I mean, Jesus Christ, 4 wins in 16 games. That is god awful. Yeah, they have 8 draws, but only 4 wins. Like I said earlier, I mean, like, if playoffs ended today, yes, technically the Union would be in, but this is a team that isn't deserving, shouldn't be deserving. But when you're in MLS, everybody gets a participation trophy and everybody gets invited into the playoffs. So yeah, I pretty much have nothing else to add. I mean, yeah, I guess at least it's not a loss, but you really feel like it should have been 6 points here in the last 2 games. But Jose, so we're not here for another 24 plus minutes. That's specifically why we took out the news segment and 3 stars and whatnot. It's not you. I think, imagine if Kyle was here too, or if you were here with us last episode, we're definitely going over 145 minutes. There's like no ways about that. We're 100% coming over. So I think when people see and read in the show notes that you're the guest on the podcast, I think people just expect you to go over an hour with me. I mean, I joke with you guys all the time, over under an hour. And I feel like you guys have done a pretty good job so far with that, going under. So I need to take notes out of Mike and Dave's.
I don't know if that's good or bad, Todd. I'm sort of a little self-conscious here. I hope it's good. I hope it's good conversation that people enjoy.
It is. I think what this proves is we both have a lot to say. So the good thing is, people seem to enjoy it because they always listen. So I was going to say, before I went on that rant, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me at Jose R Nunez 91 on Twitter, and pinned at the very, very top, Substack if you want to follow along, subscribe, etc. And find me. We try to do it every week. It's been tough across the pitch with good friends. Mike Barrera and Dave Miller is the one who brought me into the dance, basically. We try to talk about these games. We dissect them as much as we can, and we sort of preview future ones. So make sure you keep an eye out for that on my Twitter feed, and certainly Mike Barrera and Dave Miller. Really, really nice guys that everybody does a great job covering the team. But selfishly, I think we do best.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. AAT Sports and josenunez.substack.com, great content over there. Don't sleep on the AAT Sports guys. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, don't know why I forgot that for a second, at Free Kick Pod. Wherever you get your podcast, the Free Kick just the Free Kick. The YouTube account, youtube.com/Free Kick Pod, and the freekick.substack.com if you want to find all of that in one place. Make it super easy for you guys. But yeah, we'll see what we do here. 2 weeks until we see the Union take on Inter Miami, which is a game that is going to have no Messi, and hopefully you sold your tickets at max value. People that are listening, if not, then better luck next time, I guess. Which, by the way, I got a story I got to tell you once we get off air, so don't let me forget. But that's pretty much it, Jose. Thank you so much for joining, and for all you guys that have stayed for an hour and 10 minutes, I appreciate you guys. With that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.